Hello again. Hello everyone. Hope you're all alright. I've got a few stories again today, which you might like. Not too long, but they're all alright. These are all around about 50-year-old. So at the moment, these are all true, as today's information is really over exaggerated. So these are true from the 1970s. So I'd believe these, me personally, more than I believe the ones that are today, unless somebody's got very accurate ones, which is probably going to be the same as what I'm reading now. So first one is Spring-Heeled Jack. Oh, by the way, please be subscribed if you like to hear these stories, and if you want to press the like button, help yourself. I'll start reading now. Spring-Heeled Jack. Out of the mists of the night he came, a leaping, bounding Superman who held the nation in a grip of terror for more than 60 years. At first he was just a rumour. No one took much notice when people crossing Barnes Common in southwest London first reported seeing an alarming figure that flew through the air in great leaps across their path, but the reports persisted until they were terrifyingly confirmed a year later in February 1838. Jane Alsop was young and pretty. She lived with her two sisters and her father in a little London back street in Bow called Behind Lane. She had heard of the bogeyman called Spring-Heeled Jack, but she was too sensible to heed such tales. One night there was a violent knocking at the door. Jane went to answer it. The man, standing in the shadows near the front gate, swung round. "I'm a police officer," he said. "For God's sake, bring me a light, for we have caught Spring-Heeled Jack in the lane." The stories were true after all, thought Jane excitedly. As she ran to fetch a candle, "I'll see him being arrested." She rushed back outside with the candle, but as she gave it to the man at the gate, he grabbed her by the neck and pinned her head under his arm. Then he ripped at her dress and body. She screamed and tore herself away. He chased her, caught her by the hair, and clawed her face and neck. A sister, hearing the screams, ran into the street and raised the alarm, but before anyone could stop him, Jack soared away into the darkness. Jane later described her inhuman attacker to Lambeth magistrate. He was wearing a kind of helmet, she told them, and a tight-fitting white costume, like an oilskin. His face was hideous, his eyes were like balls of fire, his hands had great claws, and he vomited blue and white flames. It was a description that was to be repeated over and over again in the following years. Always the leaps, the flames, and the eyes of hell. Lucy Scales was 18 years old, the sister of a respected Limehouse butcher. She had just left her brother's house one evening on her way home with her sister, and as they walked along Lonely Green, Dragon Alley, a tall cloaked figure jumped out of the shadows. He spat blue flames at Lucy's face, blinding her. During the 1850s and 60s, Spring-Heeled Jack was sighted all over England, particularly in the Midlands. In the 1870s, army authorities set traps after scared sentries reported being terrified by a man who darted out of the darkness to slap their faces with an icy hand or sprang on to the roof of their sentry boxes. Angry townsfolk in Lincoln shot at him when he appeared in the streets one night in 1877. Always he laughed and melted away. No one, even today, really has any idea who or what Spring-Heeled Jack was. For a while suspicion rested on the eccentric young Marquis of Waterford, but through the mad Marquis, as he was known, was one of the wild ones of Victorian society. He was never vicious. Jack's eyes of hell were last seen in 1904 at Everton in Liverpool, 67 years after the first sightings in Barnes. There he started a panic one night by bounding up and down the streets, leaping from cobbles to rooftops and back. When some of the braver ones tried to corner him, he simply vanished into the darkness from where he came, this time for good. Now that was Spring-Heeled Jack. So let's hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll pull this one out as well now. This one's called The Witch Doctor's Curse. Witchcraft and magic still play a significant part in the lives of many tribal Africans, even some of those who have now settled in urban communities. They still believe that a curse, particularly a death curse, can be broken only by the invocation of stronger spirits and the help of an even stronger witch doctor. Anthropologists insist that the curse merely creates a death wish which the victim fulfills. However, there are instances in which white powder, who are not usually psychologically affected by witchcraft or magic, have been the victims of such curses. There have been two spectacular cases in Rhodesia in the last 33 years. Now, Rhodesia is now Uganda. A witch doctor appeared before Salisbury High Court in 1949 and was jailed for 2 years for illegally practicing his craft. The old man simply shrugged his shoulders, fatalistically accepting his punishment, but he burst into a furious temper when the judge ordered his charms and medicines to be destroyed. He screamed a curse that lions would return to the streets of the city. By 1949, Salisbury was an established, modern, sophisticated city, and lions had not been seen in its streets for 50 years. However, 3 weeks later, a pride of lions, an adult male and female, and 3 almost fully grown cubs strolled nonchalantly across a street just 2 miles from the city centre. A few days later, they attacked a tame goat in the garden of a house 1 mile away under the horrified gaze of the family on the veranda. The chain of events went on, with dogs and cattle being slaughtered. A hunt was launched, poison was put down, all without success. After a week of siege, the lions moved away and were next seen in Missouri, 16 miles away, causing havoc at a gold mine. The lions made 2 kills at a farm, in spite of 2 hunters who sat up all night waiting for them. All the hunters bagged that night was a pedigree bull which had wandered over to investigate. The bleats of a goat stalked out as lion bait. After this, the lions were never seen or heard of again. Several years before, Adrian Brooks had an encounter with witchcraft. He was an enthusiastic young graduate who had been posted to the government administrative office in Kasama in northern Rhodesia. Now, Zambia, not Uganda, Zambia. It's Zambia. It actually was Uganda. Rhodesia is now Zambia. Yeah, from a long time, Rhodesia is now northern Rhodesia. I believe is now Zambia. In fact, I'll ignore that and I'll let you find out yourself. You want. I'll just read you the facts. Because I'm in northern Rhodesia now, Zambia, which is correct. Unless it's changed since then, which I'll be honest with you, I really don't know, but I'm being honest, you see. This was a small administrative headquarters for the deeply superstitious Wemba tribe. For the tribesmen, a spirit lurks behind every tree, and there is an occult reason for even the most everyday happening. Brooks was district officer at Kasama and quickly settled into the routine. He was a keen and amateur photographer and spent his free time looking for unusual subjects, pictures of which he might be able to sell. After 3 months, he learnt from a tribesman of the Wembas sacred burial ground of the paramount chiefs. It was in a secret place which had never been visited by a white man. The burial ritual has been handed down over the centuries. The chief's body is placed in a royal hut and watched over until the flesh has rotted from the bones. The skeleton is then buried in a sitting position with its hand sticking out of the ground, held upright by a forked stick, so that passers-by can shake hands with the dead chief. The sacred grove is guarded. This is called the deadly picture, this one. The sacred grove is is guarded by two elderly witch doctors. In spite of their vehement protest, Brooks walks in and started talking the same story, started taking photographs with an air of nonchalance, which further angered the guardians of the grove. When he left, they warned him that he angered the spirits and would soon be dead. Brooks was not at all worried, and when he got back to Kasama, he joked about the curse with a macabre relish. 3 days later, he was standing outside his office building when the flagpole crashed down and killed him. The official report stated that termites had been eating the base of the pole, and it had fallen just as Brooks paused below it. Right, that's that one. So the next one, let me find it, and I'll tell you what it's called. This one's called Coffins That Kept Moving. In the 18th century, the Warrens, a rich family of planters, built a rock-hewn tomb at Christchurch, Barbados. It was sealed with a massive marble door, more a fortress than a tomb. One family member to be interred there was Mrs. Thomasina Goddard in 1807. A year later, the vault was taken over by the Chase family, also slave-owning planters, who purchased it to bury two daughters in 1808 and 1812. When the tomb was opened again in 1812 to receive the body of their father, Thomas Chase, the girls' lead coffins had been stood on end upside down. There was no sign of a break-in, nor was there in 1816 when the tomb was again opened for the body of a boy relative. But the Chase coffins had again been widely disarranged. That of Thomas, which had taken 8 men to carry, was leaning upright against the wall of the vault. By the time of the next funeral, 8 weeks later, word of the strange tomb had got around and a huge crowd turned up for the ceremony. They were not disappointed. Although the tomb was sealed, the 4 Chase coffins inside were once more in disarray. The governor of Barbados, Lord Combermere, now took a hand. In 1819 he supervised the orderly restacking of the coffins and had seals put round the door slab, but the following year, after reports of noises, he visited the site again. His seals were intact, but the lead coffins were in their customary jumbled confusion. Only the little crumbling wooden coffin of Mrs. Goddard still lay peacefully in its corner. No explanation seems to fit the case. Negro slaves could not have moved the coffins in revenge without leaving some trace. There was no trace of flooding, and earthquakes would hardly have shaken one tomb without disturbing others in the surrounding area. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, suggested that supernatural forces moved the coffins in protest at their lead construction, which prevented the speedy decay of the bodies inside. He thought these forces might have been strengthened by the fact that Thomas Chase and one of his daughters had committed suicide. Whatever the reason was, the moving coffins caused such mass concern all over Barbados that the tomb was emptied of all its occupants 150 years ago. It remains empty to this day, except for the litter blown in by the wind through gaps in the bars of the door. Anyway, that was enough for today for me. I hope you're all alright, and I hope you enjoyed these stories. I'll read some more again in a couple of days, and I might even be able to do a bit of a tour around my area and just do something different and show you where I live. So if you like these, please subscribe and press the like button if you want. Thank you very much. Thank you.